This segment brought to you by our good friends at America First Policies. You know, the caravan of illegal immigrants marching from Guatemala to our border, well, it's now in Tijuana. You know, it was 3,000, then 4,000, 5,000. Now, at the end, it's going to be 10,000 people. It gets bigger by the day. Well, why not? Because a judge in San Francisco just basically gave them a free pass. No laws, no sovereignty, no country. They're determined to bum rush the border, crash it, and if they get through, there's millions and millions and millions more coming where they came from. That's why we need to build the wall now. If we don't have a border, guess what? No country. We don't have a country. We have a landmass. Congress, they've put it off forever. Now they're about to take up funding for the wall. Liberals want to abolish ICE. They want to let everybody in, including criminals. Big business wants cheap labor, and they let everybody in, too. They don't care. That's the unholy alliance of all time. Cheap labor, bigger mansions for them, and nothing for the U.S. worker. Coal in their stocking. Now, we can't let them have their way. Congress needs to hear from us in no uncertain terms because guess what? This is our country, not Guatemala's. And oh, by the way, they're waving Guatemalan flags if they hate their country so much. Why are they waving their flags? Go figure. Congress needs to hear from us today. Call them today. Build a wall now, 202-224-3121, 202-224-3121. This message paid for and authorized by America First Policies Incorporated. Joining us now, Curtis Ellis, Senior Policy Advisor, America First Policies Incorporated, Chairman Emeritus of the American Jobs Alliance, former executive with the Department of Labor. He was with the Trump campaign. He was on the transition team. And he's been fighting against free trade, open free trade with me for 40 years. Finally, we're winning after losing 150 in a row. Kind of like the Cleveland Browns, but now we're winning. Curtis, great to have you.
Hey, it's great to be here, John.
Happy Thanksgiving.
I woke up the same way. I saw that announcement from the Ninth Circuit Court in San Francisco. That was a heck of a way to wake up. The judge saying you must let in all of the asylum seekers, no matter where they present themselves, even if they cross the border illegally. You got to let them in, process them, let them go. Unbelievable.
I mean, basically, if they're apprehended in Philadelphia, they can say, "Oh, I'm claiming asylum." Oh, okay.
That's right. You could arrest them for murder. They could be standing over a dead body with a bloody knife in their hand, and they say, "I want asylum. I have reasonable fear of persecution," and then boom, they get processed. Unbelievable.
Is it me?
They have more rights than American citizens.
They do.
Have more rights than American citizens.
It's unbelievable.
The thing that gets me is there are so many laws on the books that you can find a judge, they can find anything in those laws. And we are beyond the point of having constitutional rule in this country where the Congress passes a law, the president signs it, and the executive branch administers the laws. We're well beyond that now. We're to the point where just go to a judge, find a judge, and he'll just go. Mm-hmm. He'll tell you what the law is. He'll make it up on the spot.
Mm-hmm. See, I'm with you. I think of all every ruling from the Ninth Circuit, from any judge basically that the Trump administration has had, I don't think we've won any of them. But I find this one to be the most egregious because basically you've got some judge saying, I don't believe in U.S. sovereignty. You really have no right to keep anybody out. And anybody should come in. They should want to come in. They can come in. And I guess that's somehow written in the Constitution that there's no country. There's a landmass. I don't really get how this judge can say this because effectively his ruling has stripped U.S. sovereignty. And as soon as this goes down, people are going to jump the wall in Tijuana and there's nothing we can do about it.
That's right. Exactly. There's no point in having ports of entry. There's no point in having a legal ports of entry and a legal system.
And one of the things he said in this,
just walk in.
Curtis Ellis, one of the things he said in this ruling is that, at the ports of entry, that some people may have to wait 2 weeks to get processed legally. So therefore, they don't have time to wait 2 weeks, so they can just come in illegally. Well, it took them a month and a half to get here. So,
well, I understand that there's a ruling. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I understand that there's a judge right now that he's waiting to issue this ruling that the United States is obliged to provide jumbo jets in El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala, so these people don't have to wait 2 weeks to walk through Mexico to get here. We have to fly them or put them in FedEx boxes and FedEx them to the United States. This is ridiculous.
It's an incredible.
Where does it end?
You know, I was asking this question earlier to my audience on the air. Where does this end? Like, what is the end game for the open borders crowd? Now, I get they want more Democratic votes in Texas to turn that blue, and Georgia, they'll ship them there, turn that blue, and maybe they just ship them to states that are close, Arizona. They just want to turn everything blue and have all Democratic power. Well, let's say they get that. Let's say all the illegals come in. You can't really stop them from voting, Curtis, because all you have to do is check the box that says, I'm a citizen, right? Nobody checks that. They just check the box. And so then they vote.
If they go to Washington State, they get mailed a ballot. Everybody in Washington State is mailed a ballot. Every single registered voter in the state of Washington is mailed a ballot. The entire election is conducted by mail. Mm-hmm. There are no polling places. So everybody who gets a license, checks a box, says and they're registered to vote, they get ballots. And so, you can be sure that a hefty percentage of these non-citizens are getting ballots.
Right. All you have to do now to register to vote is, you can get a driver's license. You have ID, right? So you have that. And there's a little box that says, are you a U.S. citizen? If you check, you are, even if you're not. Nobody is checking that against the master illegal immigration E-Verify database, right? It's not checked. So they take your word, and now you're a registered voter. And then when you do it by mail, you don't even have to show up. So you don't even have to present anything. You just mail it in. And that's why you look at the Republicans have lost, 15 House races that they were ahead going into Wednesday. They lost every single one of them on mail-in ballots. Every single one.
Right. On mail-in ballots, you have to ask if there's something going on with these mail-in ballots. You have to ask that. Somebody needs to examine ballots that were cast on Election Day by mail, that were counted, that arrived in the poll at the Board of Elections on Election Day or after, that were postmarked on Election Day. And there's something going on there. But anyway, you were saying, where does this end?
That's my question to you. Where does it end?
It ends with no borders, no nations. That is the goal of the left. They've stated it. It's clear. They have organizers going down to Central America, organizing these caravans, and they're telling them, you have a right to go to the United States. You listen to what the liberals say, people like Ocasio-Cortez and her ilk. You read what they say on the liberal blogs, on the uber-liberal blogs and websites. They don't believe in nations. And this is an ancient tradition of the left. Karl Marx laid it all out. The final goal of communism is no borders, no nations. One classless society the world over. And so what are the intermediary steps to get there? Well, first, one of the intermediary steps is to eliminate nations. You would think that first you got to have the revolution, and you have an new economic order, and then after that, the state is going to wither away, which is the words Marx used, the withering away of the state. The state and countries are going to wither away. He actually came out and said he is in favor, Karl Marx said he's in favor of free trade because it undermines the nation state. And that is one of the goals of the communist ideology. So I know this is going to sound like crackpot talk to some people, but it's there in black and white. And now you hear them saying it. Mm-hmm. Abolish orders, abolish ICE, abolish borders. They believe that there should be one big happy economy in the world. And unfortunately, it won't be happy. And again, this is the unholy alliance of big business and sob sister, feel-good, sympathetic liberals. The sympathetic liberals say, oh, we got to help these poor people, and they don't think about whether we get rid of nations or not. The big business, they don't want borders. They want cheap labor, and they want to exploit cheap labor wherever it is on Earth. If they can't bring them here, they'll bring the factories there to where the cheap labor is.
Right.
And at the end game, what happens is you'll have a small elite who live very well off and have everything they want, and the rest of us will be working as peons at subsistence wages. You have the Brookings Institution now seriously putting out the proposition that there should be wage subsidies for people. This is because wages are being driven down by this international wage structure. So our wages are going to go somewhere south of Mexico. We'll all be working for wages at the Honduran level. And their solution is, well, we should be subsidizing the wages of some people in America so that they can actually eke out a living. I mean, this is insane. This is socialism on an international scale. That's the goal. That's the end game. Transnational socialism. Trotsky preached it. Marx envisioned it. And now you've got these do-gooder liberals working hand in hand with the giant corporations, which are essentially socialist in nature, to implement it.
How does Trump get reelected in 2020?
There are 7 states and 40 counties that matter. We're no longer in suburban districts with, where the swing voter are white women or pink ostriches or whatever. It is now a state-by-state race. There are essentially 7 states and 40 counties within those states where the election will be decided. We saw we did well in the Senate because when you have a state election, the Trump voters can still have their voices heard. And that's how he gets reelected.
What are the
and we have to start implementing the Trump agenda on China, on immigration, on all of the issues that he campaigned on the first time. This last time around, we saw Congress that never acted on the Trump agenda, then asking for the voters to reelect them.
And they wouldn't do it.
How that worked out.
They wouldn't do it. It didn't work out very well. We're with Curtis Ellis, Senior Policy Advisor with America First Policies. More information, go to americafirstpolicies.org. Curtis, those 7 states, Florida, Ohio, Michigan, North Carolina, Wisconsin, what else? Pennsylvania, Iowa, Minnesota, that's 8.
Yeah.
New Hampshire, 9.
Hold on.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, those are the basics. Because,
pardon me?
Yeah, because, I mean, you've basically got, if you add in New Hampshire and Minnesota, you've got 10 states in play. 9 states: Florida, Ohio, Michigan, North Carolina, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Iowa, Minnesota, New Hampshire. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Everything else is a foregone conclusion. Now, the Democrats are going to say they can win Texas. They're not in 2020. They can say they're going to win Georgia. They're not in 2020. So that really leaves 9 states out of 50 that are competitive. The others are...
That's right. We could lose every House seat in California, Oregon, Washington. Won't matter.
It won't matter.
It will not matter. Every House seat in the next election in New York, in New Jersey, in Delaware would not matter. We can still reelect Donald J. Trump.
And possibility that he gets reelected again with not a majority of the popular vote, because the Democratic nominee, whoever it is going to run up huge numbers in California, New York, New Jersey, Washington, the very liberal states. They're going to run up big numbers. Do you know that we lost every congressional seat in Orange County? I used to live there.
Right.
I worked for the Orange County Register. I worked then for the Ventura County Star for some time, and we lived there. And I lived there when Bob, who was the congressman that ran for president? Bullet Bob
Dornan. B1 Bob.
B1 Bob. And there were 7 congressmen in Orange County, all of them Republican. It was like the deep of the deep red, and now every one of them wiped out. Every one gone. All blue.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And this was
incredible. And Linda Sanchez, I believe it was Linda or else her sister,
that
who beat B1 Bob.
Yep.
This time she got reelected by fewer than 400 votes.
Really?
Yeah.
And she's been in.
Orange County, that was a Republican stronghold. I remember.
Yep.
I go further back than you with B1 Bob. I remember Joe Pine, the Joe Pine Show on TV. He used to broadcast. He was a super right-wing guy and in the 60s, and he broadcast from Orange County. I mean, this is where all the aerospace industry was, the defense industries, and, I mean, that was one Republican hotbed.
It was, and I work
John Birch Society country.
That's right. I worked for the Orange County Register, which was probably the biggest libertarian paper in the country. It was owned by Freedom back then. Now it's changed hands several times, and equity firms own it. But it was owned by Freedom Communications, which was a very conservative organization, and they own a bunch of TV stations and papers out there. Orange County Register was their flagship, and it was a fiercely libertarian conservative paper, backed Reagan, backed Goldwater, and I was there for some time. And now look at it; it's it's unbelievable what has happened. Curtis, we're out of time, buddy. Happy Thanksgiving to Curtis Ellis. The Endgame, the unholy alliance goes on. But I tell you what, if we don't stop this influx in Tijuana right now, Curtis, the next migrant caravan is not going to be 10,000. It's going to be 100,000.
That's right. That's exactly right. That is exactly right. You got it.
Happy Thanksgiving,
right.
Curtis Ellis.
Keep
I'll see you
up the
next
good
week.
fight,
John
John.
Fredericks Radio Network.